Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the greatest origin stories in all of motorsports. We're talking about how a tiny German sports car company took on the absolute giants of racing and began a dynasty at the world's toughest race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So I want you to picture this. Forget about high-tech pit stops and hybrid engines. We're in the 1950s, and endurance racing is just brutal. It's a physical test of survival. Drivers would literally sprint across the track, jump into their cars, and roar off for 24 hours. And it's in this raw, totally unforgiving world that a small company, a real underdog, was about to change everything. You see, right after World War II, Porsche was a brand new company. They were building these beautiful but pretty humble sports cars, really just trying to find their footing. This wasn't some story of corporate might. No, this was a story of pure survival. And these first cars, the Type 356, they were brilliant, but they were born out of necessity. You know, they used Volkswagen platforms and hand-formed aluminum bodies because that's what was available. It was incredibly resourceful, super efficient engineering. They were light, they were nimble, but let's be honest, nobody thought they were a threat to the big guys. Well, that all changed at the Paris Motor Show. The legendary Le Mans race organizer, a guy named Charles Ferro, he saw something in these little cars. And he walks up to Ferry Porsche with this simple but incredibly audacious proposal that would set the company on a totally new path. He didn't just invite them. He basically dared them. He challenged this brand new company to prove its engineering on the world's most demanding stage. I mean, for a small factory with almost no resources, this wasn't just a challenge. It was a monumental gamble. Okay, so Porsche, against all odds, they accept the dare. They took one of their lightweight aluminum coupes, they called it the 356 SL for super light, which is just German for super light, and they had it to France for the 1951 race. And that brings us to their first big test, a debut that, let me tell you, was almost a complete and utter disaster. And this is where the legend almost died before it even started, because right from the get-go, things went catastrophically wrong for the tiny Porsche team. They show up with their entire factory effort. And what was that effort? Just 2 cars. That's it. One primary car and one backup. For a small team on a shoestring budget, so far from home, that backup car was everything. And then, disaster. During a practice session, the backup car gets completely destroyed in an accident. Just like that, their team is cut in half. All their hopes, their entire budget, everything is now riding on one single, solitary car. The pressure must have been absolutely insane. But what happened next was just extraordinary. The lone number 46 Porsche, driven by 2 French drivers, Auguste Foyer and Edmond Mouchet, it just ran like a Swiss watch. For 24 grueling hours, that little car performed flawlessly. It was this stunning testament to its simple, robust, Volkswagen-based engineering. And get this, they didn't just finish, they won their class. Now, I know, 20th place overall might not sound like a huge headline, but for a tiny team on their debut with a car that almost didn't even start the race, a class win was world-shaking. It proved that Porsche's whole philosophy of being lightweight and efficient wasn't just a theory, it was a race-winning strategy. So that incredible success, it gets people talking. It puts Porsche on the map. And this is where the company gets really, really smart. They start to formalize their racing program by learning from talented people who were already pushing the limits on their own. They hired this guy, Baron von Honstein, a PR genius and a skilled driver, to lead the team. And crucially, they paid super close attention to what private racers were doing. Guys like Walter Glockler, who was already building these radical mid-engine race cars using Porsche parts. He was basically showing them the future. And here's the key takeaway. Porsche knew they couldn't keep this up with a modified street car. The 356 had proven it had a ton of heart and reliability, but to truly take on the giants, they needed something more. They needed a dedicated weapon. This next part is a pivotal moment in the company's history. Inspired by those privateers and hungry for a bigger prize, Porsche makes the totally audacious decision to build its first ever purpose-built race car from a clean sheet of paper. For a small company like this was a massive leap. And their answer to this exact question would define the company's entire racing philosophy for decades, right? They knew they couldn't outmuscle the competition from Jaguar, Ferrari, or Mercedes. They couldn't just build a bigger engine. So they decided they would have to outthink them. And this This was their brilliant answer, the 550 Spyder. It was light, it was streamlined, it was mid-engine, and it was designed with one beautiful goal in mind: to be a giant killer. This car was built for the track and absolutely nothing else. Okay, just look at these numbers. This slide tells the whole story. It's David versus Goliath. The winning Jaguar C-Type had more than double the horsepower, but the Porsche 550 weighed nearly 1,000 pounds less. See, they weren't trying to win a fistfight. They were playing chess. It's all about physics. And this quote from Porsche engineer Jürgen Barth, it sums up the entire philosophy in a nutshell. Less weight means you need less fuel, you make fewer pit stops, and you put less stress on your tires and brakes. This idea of radical efficiency was baked into Porsche's DNA right from the very beginning. And so we come to it. A legend begins. It's 1953. The brand new 550 arrives at Le Mans for its moment of truth. This was the ultimate test for their giant killer concept, a real face-off against the best sports cars in the entire world. Now, the two 550 coupes didn't win the race outright. That was never really the expectation. But they absolutely stunned the competition. They ran flawlessly, finishing an incredible 15th and 16th overall, punching way, way above their weight class. But here's the kicker. They completely dominated their class, finishing first and second. The giant killer concept was no longer a theory. It was a resounding, undeniable success. Porsche had proven, for all the world to see, that clever engineering could absolutely triumph over brute force. With the 50/50 Spyder, Porsche had fired its first real shot. The foundation was laid, and it set the stage for a dynasty that would one day not just compete at Le Mans, but completely and utterly dominate the greatest race in the world.